appreciate you taking the time to check this video out. I'm excited about this one. This video is going to be my personal ranking of the top 10 current NBA players. It's not going to be my top 10 MVP candidates or who I think is having the best season, but rather who I think the 10 best players in the NBA are right now, in my opinion. So, if this was ranking like who's having the best season or who's the MVP, then the rankings would be different. So I'm just throwing that out there because people might say, oh, what about, but this season this and this season that, and it's not just based on this season. Now, this season obviously is going to have a lot to do with the rankings, but what it really is just who do I think the 10 best players in the NBA are right now. Now, before I get started, I do have to mention, unfortunately, we've had a couple of injuries recently. Obviously, DeMarcus Cousins just last night got diagnosed, tore his Achilles, which is just an awful, awful injury. Praying for a speedy recovery for him. He's probably someone who would have made my list if he didn't get injured. But now with this injury, unfortunately, we don't know what he's going to look like. Hopefully he'll be able to get back at some point. When he does, we don't know if he's going to be the same guy. Hopefully he'll come back stronger than ever. But due to that catastrophic injury, I had to kind of disqualify him from the list. And then the other guy that definitely would be on the list if healthy is Kawhi Leonard, forward for the Spurs. In my opinion, he's one of the best players in the entire NBA. Does it all, but he's been dealing with injuries all year long. He's barely played. I think he's played in like 6 games, and when he has played, it hasn't looked like himself. Came back briefly, and now they're saying he's out indefinitely. Don't know if we're going to see him at all again this year. So I kind of had to take him off the list too, unfortunately. But he's someone who definitely would have been high on that list had he been healthy, but he's not, unfortunately. So with that being said, I want to jump in. Here's my current top 10 NBA players. At number 10, I've got a guy who, honestly, I feel like doesn't quite get the recognition he deserves. I think a lot of it has to do with him playing north of the border, but it's DeMar DeRozan, shooting guard for the Raptors. This year has kind of been his breakout season, but he's been an all-star caliber player for a lot of years now. Just a deadly scorer. He's the best player on one of the best teams in the NBA. He can get his shot from pretty much anywhere, and this year he's even added a three-point shot, which was really the major flaw in his game prior to this year, his inability to shoot from deep. This year he's added that, gotten a lot better at it, and it's really improved his game and his ceiling, and I think it's helped the overall floor spacing for his team. So I've got DeMar DeRozan at number 10. At number 9, I've got a guy who does get probably the recognition he deserves, but it's Kyrie Irving of the Boston Celtics. He kind of broke out when he hit essentially the game winner in the NBA Finals over Golden State in 2016. Now, this past summer, he demanded a trade from the Cavs because he wanted to prove he could lead his own team without the shadow of LeBron James. I think he's done a great job for that. He's the best player on the team with the best record in the Eastern Conference. They started out incredible, and that's even losing their second best player in Gordon Hayward went down on opening night. They've been rolling anyway. Now, they have fallen off a little bit from how they were playing in November and December, but still a great season for Boston. Kyrie has been the man for years now, as far as just wizard with the ball, outside shot, clutch baskets. Offensively, he can do it all. Only flaw in his game is defensively, but he's kind of picked that up this year too, which is the reason why I'm willing to put him in my top 10 now. He's improved, shown he can lock in defensively when it matters, and offensively, he's a wizard with the basketball. He's got the best handles in the league. He's an outstanding player. I've got Kyrie at number 9. At number 8, I've got another point guard. This time it's Chris Paul for the Rockets. New team, same Chris Paul. Matter of fact, you can argue he's been better. With James Harden going down and missing some games, CP3's actually kind of stepped it up scoring-wise more from what he did in LA. and he's been outstanding this year. He's obviously missed his fair share of time too. I thought he should have been an all-star, but I think the main reason he's not an all-star is because he's missed so much time due to injury. But Chris Paul still got it offensively. He's still really good defensively. I think he should be first team All NBA or first team All Defense this year. He's hitting threes. He's hitting mid-range shots. He's hitting clutch baskets. He's still arguably the best passer in the NBA. He does it all. Chris Paul at number 8. And number 7, it's the Brody Russell Westbrook, the reigning MVP. Westbrook, a lot of people would probably have him higher on the list. I think, to me, obviously it's my list, so I think that's 7 is the perfect spot for him. He's an incredible athlete, incredible player. Just brings an energy unlike maybe any basketball player I've ever seen. He can ignite a crowd, ignite a court, ignite his teammates. I do think that his style of play, like his lack of consistent 3-point shooting in today's NBA, where 3-point shooting is so important, his lack of making consistent jump shots limits him a little bit, and his tendency to kind of go into just takeover mode late in games, and maybe sometimes his teammates are standing in the corner when they should be moving around getting involved. Instead, they're standing there watching Russell go to work. A lot of times it can lead to game winning shots and great plays. A lot of times it doesn't, especially in the playoffs. So that's just my knock on him, why I wouldn't have him higher. But he's an incredible athlete. Other than LeBron, he might be the greatest athlete to play this game, at least in a long time. He's incredible. I've got Westbrook at 7. At number 6, we've got a guy who I think, if I do this list maybe 2 years from now, I think there's an argument I might put him number 1. I think he'll definitely be in the top 5, but for now I've got him at number 6, and it's the Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Milwaukee Bucks star. If you're a hardcore NBA fan, you obviously know who he is and how incredible he is. If you're a casual NBA fan, you probably heard his name mentioned by now because he's so incredible, but you probably don't really know who he is if you're a casual fan, because he plays in Milwaukee and they're not on national TV a lot. But you should watch him because he's incredible. And honestly, if I wanted to, like, if someone didn't watch a lot of basketball and they came to me and said, hey, who should I watch? Like, who do you think I should watch if I want to watch basketball and enjoy it and have a good time? I would say probably Steph Curry 1, and I might say Giannis 2. That's how good he is. That's how incredible and exciting he is. And matter of fact, I would arguably put him at 1. The only reason I might put Steph ahead is because of the incredible shooting. But Giannis, other than shooting, he does it all. I would love to see Milwaukee surround him with guys who can shoot, because if you have shooters on the floor, it opens up the court, and it makes it so that someone like Giannis, who's so explosive going to the basket, if there's shooters on the floor, then the defense can't just pack the paint and stay all by the hoop. They have to spread out because they're scared of the shooting. And that would open up the lane for Giannis. Right now, he doesn't have a lot of shooting around him. So when defenses, like other teams, will just plan around him and say, well, we'll just, pack the paint and make it hard for him to get inside, because he doesn't have a great jump shot yet. And a lot of his teammates don't either. So the defense doesn't really have to respect the shooting. If he had 3-4 guys around him who could all shoot well from deep, it would make Giannis impossible to guard, because you wouldn't be able to just pack the paint against him. So really the only knock in Giannis's game is his jump shot, and he's still so young. I think he's only I want to say he's only 22, something like that. He's definitely in his early 20s still. But I mean, the guy's like 7 feet tall, 6'11", just incredible leaper. He blocks shots, he gets steals, he gets highlight dunks. He does it all. His fans love him. He's a great guy. He recently lost his father, so he's kind of dedicated this season to playing for his dad, and he's definitely in the MVP race. And About 2-3 years ago, he kind of broke out onto the scene, and he's gotten better every season. This year has been his best yet. He averages like 28 points a game. He's incredible player, incredible person. If you want to watch basketball, he's one of the guys I would recommend. Watch Milwaukee, because if Giannis Antetokounmpo is playing, you're gonna see something really amazing. So, Giannis at number 6. Okay, I could talk about Giannis all day, but we have to get on to our top 5 now. Top 5 players in the NBA. Number 5, it's the Brow, Anthony Davis. He's another guy, like I talked about with Giannis. If a casual or not basketball fan came to me and said, "Hey, Anthony, who should I watch? What NBA players would you recommend I check out?" And Giannis would be high on that list. Another guy that would be super high on that list is Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is another person. There's not really anything he can't do. I mean, he's 6'11", plays forward / center, but he grew up as a kid. Before he had his growth spurt, he was a point guard, so he was shorter. So he was a point guard, and so he had a crazy growth spurt before college. And all of a sudden, he still had his point guard skills. So he had the body of a big man, but he's got the skills of a point guard. So he can dribble, he can pass. A couple years ago, he had a jump shot. He can shoot. He gets blocks. He runs the floor. Puts up crazy stat lines where he'll have like 45 points, 16 rebounds, 5 blocks, 3 steals, and 4 assists. Like he just he is incredible. The only question I really have with Anthony Davis, there's 2. One is he hasn't really been able to win much. He's only made the playoffs, I believe, once in his career, and they got swept by the Warriors in the first round. Now, a lot of teams have gotten swept by the Warriors, so that's not saying too much, but I question, as good as he is, can he win? Now, he hasn't had the greatest talent around him, but I question, if he's your best player, what does that mean for your team? And the second thing I just question is just injuries. He's had a lot of injuries. He hasn't had a ton of major injuries, but he's had a lot. Like, he's constantly getting nicked up. Like, you watch Pelicans games, it's like, Anthony Davis had to leave. Anthony Davis had to leave with a minor this, a minor that. He's feeling this, he's feeling that. So there's just been a lot of little injuries creeping up, and he has had a couple major ones too. So just hoping that he stays healthy. That's really the only concern with him. But I'd love to see Anthony Davis on a team where, he has other talent around him, because I think if he's one of those guys, if you put him with another elite talent, you're winning championships. And I want to see Anthony Davis win. So that's what I'm hoping to see from AD. And at number 4, you guys know who this is. Steph Curry, Golden State Warriors. He's a 2-time MVP, 2-time NBA champion. Probably the greatest shooter ever play the game of basketball. One of the greatest handlers, one of the greatest teammates, one of the greatest people, from what I can tell. Steph Curry's got the total package. He probably is number 1 on that list I was talking about earlier. If someone was to come to me and say, "Hey, Anthony, what NBA player should I watch if I want to enjoy basketball?" If I was to put together that's a separate top 10 list, but number 1 would probably be Steph Curry for me, just because the guy's magical. I mean, the way he plays, the way he shoots, obviously, but also the way he just gets the crowd involved during the game. His pregame, fans show up to games hours and hours early so that they can see him do his pregame routines. He dribbled when he gets a big man switch to him on defense. He literally will make them shuffle. Like, it's crazy watching, because they're trying to guard him and they just can't keep up with his dribbling. He can pass. He plays in an incredible wide open system with 3 other star players, including one of them who we haven't even gotten to yet, who's his teammate. Steph Curry is just an incredible, amazing basketball player to watch. I don't know if I've ever... There's players who have been better, obviously, but as far as enjoyable to watch, I don't know if there's ever been any athlete in any sport ever that I've enjoyed watching more than Steph Curry, because the way he plays is just incredible. I've never seen... His game is like the combination of different stars I've seen. Like, I've seen guys like Ray Allen and Reggie Miller who could shoot the ball. And then I've seen guys like, Kyrie Irving, Allen Iverson, guys, who could handle the ball. And I've seen guys like Steve Nash and Chris Paul can pass the ball. I can't think of anyone I've seen who does all of those things simultaneously. He's incredible basketball player. I probably would have put him either 1 or 2 doing this list 2 years ago. And the only reason him being at 4 now isn't a knock on him. It's more just speaks to how elite the 3 guys ahead of him are. So Steph's at number 4. All right, number 3, it's a guy that's probably my personal favorite player. It's James Harden of the Rockets. My opinion, he should be the MVP this season. He's finished runner-up for MVP 2 separate years. I think this is probably his year. James Harden's incredible. He's strong. He can shoot. He can dribble. He can pass. Gets to the free throw line like no one other than maybe LeBron, better than anybody in the league. His defense has gotten better. That was the big knock on him always before, was his defense, and his defense has gotten a lot better. There's just not really anything he can't do. I know it seems like I've said that about like the last 5 people, but it's true. There's really just not a whole lot James Harden can't do. The only thing left for him to prove is to prove that he can win in the playoffs. He's had some incredible seasons, and then a lot of times in the playoffs it seems like he just runs out of gas and doesn't quite have it. And then he's had some bad playoff runs, so he's got to show that he can do it in the playoffs. But getting Chris Paul on his team this year should help take some of the pressure off him, to be the guy that his team's looking for to get a basket like in every possession, and the defense can't just key in on him the whole time. So I expect that to help him this year. That's the one big thing I'm waiting on with James Harden, is to see, can he get it done in the playoffs? Can he get his team, can he get his team to compete with the Warriors? Can he possibly do the impossible and get them past the Warriors? We'll see. But James Harden comes in at number 3. And number 2, it's KD, Kevin Durant. And for like the 9th time in a row, I'm going to say it again, there's not really anything he can't do. And that's been especially true over the last couple of years. Like starting last year, I feel like we really saw an uptick in Durant's defensive effort. He might be the defensive player of the year this year, and that's saying something considering he's arguably the best offensive player in the NBA too. I mean, he's incredible. He hits from range. There's not really anything that KD doesn't do. He's a monster out there. I'm not really a huge fan of him joining the Warriors for selfish basketball fan reasons, but for him, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, and I honestly think that has a lot to do with why he has so much success, is the system he gets to play in. And when you get to play next to the 2 greatest shooters of all time, right next to you, plus arguably the best defensive player in the whole league, those are 3 of your teammates that you get to play next to. It makes your job easy. And oh yeah, by the way, he just happened to be one of the greatest players of all time, a 6'11" shooting guard, basically, who can pull up from anywhere on the court, get his shot at will, and now he's turned into one of the best shot blockers and defenders in the NBA. So yeah, it's easy to see why Kevin Durant's so incredible. Is actually, I had a debate not putting him at number 1. It was tough not to put him at 1, and to be honest with you, there's 2 reasons why I didn't. One is because the guy who is number 1 is still the best player in the NBA, but the second reason is just what I mentioned about the team he gets to play for and who he gets to play next to. That's not a knock on him, but I do think that it has something to do with why he's able to play the way he is, because when you've got such an incredible level of talent around you, plus that system that they play in, where it's just free flowing and everyone gets to touch the ball and everyone competes defensively, and they have so much depth that if he needs to rest or deal with a minor injury, he has the freedom to do that without his team dropping off, because they're not just depending on him. There's so many great players on that team that they can afford to to have that happen. So I do think that's a benefit for him, but that's not a knock on him. He's an incredible player. You could argue he's the MVP of the league this year too. All right, at number one, I don't think it's any big surprise to anyone really, but it's LeBron James. He's still the best player in the NBA after all these seasons, after all this mileage, after all the finals trips and playoff series and battles and crazy stat lines, and after everything, LeBron James, I still got him at number one. Now, I do have to admit that I think the gap is getting smaller, and LeBron, as superhuman as he is, eventually there's gonna be a drop off. I think we've already kind of seen it as far as in the regular season with him kind of maybe not giving 100% on defense all the time, which is definitely not. That's not just him. I think a lot of players do that, and like we talked about with Kevin Durant, how he has the ability to be able to compete and give his 100% effort on defense a lot of times, because it's okay for him to kind of, he doesn't have, his team is not counting on him to do everything at all times offensively because they have so many other weapons, so he can afford to give 100% on defense. Basically, Kevin Durant going to the Warriors unlocked his ability to be able to play defense really hard all the time, and with LeBron, with the way his team is constructed, which he's not faultless for that, but because of how his team is, and there's so many old guys, and there's so many, the roster is just very flawed, and so it requires LeBron to be superhuman on every possession offensively, and it's just not possible to do that and be superhuman on every defensive possession as well at his age. So I'm not surprised there's a drop off defensively. However, the fact that he has to compensate that way is, to me, it's kind of a sign that, okay, he's still incredible. I think he's saving himself for the playoffs, but there's other guys nipping on his heels for that number one spot. Durant's right there. I think you could argue if LeBron's 1A, KD's 1B. I mentioned in the section about Giannis that I think if I do this list 2 years from now, wouldn't be shocked if I put Giannis at number one. James Harden's right there, Steph Curry, so LeBron's time as being the guy, the number one player in the league, who knows how much longer it's going to last, but right now I still got to put him number one. He's still incredible. He's still LeBron James. He's still the best player in the NBA, and as long as you have LeBron on your team, you're always going to have a shot. Hey guys, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to check this out. I know it was a long video, but had a lot to say. I love basketball, so just wanted to give my take on that, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. And I'm gonna have another one really soon, up soon, because there's a lot going on in the sports world. So until then, talk to you guys later. Hope you have a good one. See ya. Thanks for the support.